It was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives, the birth of their first child. But at 2:47 a.m. the wife died in labor, and the mistress laughed until the doctor whispered three words that changed everything. It's twins. What could drive someone to smile at a tragedy like that? What secrets hide behind this picture-perfect family? And how did one woman's final act expose the darkest truth of them all? Stay till the end, because trust me, you won't see this twist coming. If stories like this keep you on the edge of your seat, hit that, like, drop a comment, share this with a friend who loves drama that feels too real, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will break your heart and heal it again. The fluorescent lights in the hospital hallway buzzed with a persistent hum that made David Mitchell want to scream. 2:47 in the morning. He'd been staring at that clock on the wall for what felt like hours, watching the second hand tick forward while his wife fought for her life just 20 feet away. He wasn't alone. Amber Cross stood beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder with a familiarity that would have seemed inappropriate to anyone who didn't know their secret. Her manicured nails drummed against his suit jacket in a rhythm that matched his racing heart. She'd shown up 3 hours ago against his weak protests, insisting he needed support during this difficult time. The difficult time being his wife's labor. His wife who was dying because her body had turned against her. His wife who had no idea that the woman standing in this hallway was the same woman he'd been sleeping with for the past 8 months. A scream pierced through the closed doors of the delivery room. Sarah's scream. It was different from the others, higher pitched, more desperate. David lurched forward, but a nurse emerged and held up her hand. "Sir, please. The doctors are doing everything they can." Everything they could. That phrase felt like a knife twisting in his gut. It meant they were losing the battle. It meant Sarah was slipping away. Amber's grip tightened on his shoulder. "David, she's strong. She'll pull through." But her voice held a note he couldn't quite identify, something that wasn't quite hope, something that made his stomach turn. The delivery room doors burst open. A crash cart rolled past at full speed, pushed by two nurses who moved with the practiced urgency of people racing death itself. David caught a glimpse inside before the doors swung shut again. So much blood. Too much blood. Medical staff swarmed around the operating table where Sarah lay, their movements frantic, desperate. An alarm blared, long, continuous. The sound of a heart monitor that had stopped detecting a heartbeat. "No," David whispered. "No, no, no, Doc." Rebecca Foster emerged from the chaos. She was 52, with gray-streaked hair pulled back severely and eyes that had seen too much death to sugarcoat anything. Her scrubs were soaked through with blood. Sarah's blood. She pulled down her surgical mask and David saw her face. He already knew. "Mr. Mitchell." Her voice was professional, controlled, but he heard the weight beneath it. "I'm so sorry." The words that followed came at him like he was underwater. Disseminated intravascular coagulation. Catastrophic liver failure. HELP syndrome. Medical terms that all meant the same thing. His wife was dead. "We did everything we could," Dr. Rebecca Foster continued. "The HELP syndrome progressed too rapidly. She hemorrhaged. We gave her 43 units of blood. We had our best team working on her. But her organs shut down. She threw a massive embolism. There was nothing more we could do." David's knees buckled. He grabbed the wall to keep from collapsing. Sarah. His Sarah. The woman he'd married 9 years ago. The woman who'd given up her career to support his dream. The woman who'd endured 4 years of fertility treatments because she wanted a family with him. Gone. He buried his face in his hands. A sob tore from his throat, raw and agonizing. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. 72 hours ago, she'd been organizing the nursery, arguing with him about whether sage green or butter yellow was a better color. Now she was gone. A sound cut through his grief. Small, sharp, almost like a cough. It was a laugh. David's head snapped up. Amber stood there, her hand covering her mouth, but he'd heard it. A single bark of laughter that she'd tried and failed to suppress. Her eyes were wide, startled by her own reaction. But for just a split second before she covered it, he'd seen something else on her face. Relief. Dr. Rebecca Foster had heard it too. Her head turned slowly toward Amber, and David watched the doctor's expression transform from professional sympathy to something cold and hard. Disgust. Pure, undiluted disgust. "Who are you?" Dr. Rebecca Foster's voice could have cut glass. Amber's face flushed. I work with David. I came to support him during this difficult time. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's just shock. I don't know why I get out of my hospital." "Excuse me?" "You heard me." Rebecca Foster took a step forward. "Get out, now." David stared at Amber, really looked at her for the first time since the doctor had emerged. She was dressed impeccably even at 3 in the morning. Designer jeans, cashmere sweater, expensive perfume that he'd bought her last month. She'd come here dolled up like she was going to a cocktail party, not a hospital where his wife was fighting for her life, where his wife had just lost that fight. And she'd laughed. "David?" Amber's voice was small now, uncertain. Tell her I'm here for you, Al." He couldn't form words, couldn't process what he'd just witnessed. The woman he'd been planning a future with, the woman he'd risked everything for, had just laughed when told his wife was dead. "Security." Dr. Rebecca Foster didn't raise her voice, but somehow it carried. 2 security guards appeared from around the corner as if they'd been waiting. Amber's face hardened. "This is ridiculous. David, say something." "Go." The words scraped out of his throat like broken glass. "Just go, Amber." "But I came here for you. I've been here all night." "Go!" His shout echoed through the hallway. Other families in the waiting area turned to stare. Amber's face crumpled, but David saw the anger flash in her eyes before she turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the linoleum. The security guards followed at a discreet distance. Silence fell. Dr. Rebecca Foster stood there, studying David with an expression he couldn't read. "Mr. Mitchell," she said finally, "I need to tell you something else." David looked up at her. "What else could there possibly be? What could be worse than this? Your son is healthy, 6 pounds, 3 ounces, strong lungs. He's in the NICU for observation, but he's going to be fine." A son. He had a son who would never know his mother, a son who Sarah had died bringing into the world. The weight of it crashed over him, and he had to grab the wall again to stay upright. "Can I see him?" His voice didn't sound like his own. "In a moment. But first." Rebecca Foster paused. "There's something else. Something we didn't know until we opened her up." David's world had already ended. What else could there be? On every ultrasound, one baby was positioned directly behind the other. It's extremely rare, but it happens. The second fetus was completely hidden. We didn't know until the C-section. The hallway tilted. David grabbed for something to steady himself, but found only air. Dr. Rebecca Foster's eyes held his. "Mr. Mitchell, your wife gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl." The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. Twins. Sarah had carried twins and nobody knew. She died not bringing one baby into the world, but 2. "Your daughter is smaller," Dr. Rebecca Foster continued. 5 pounds, 8 ounces. But she's stable. They're both in the NICU, both fighting, both alive. Both alive because Sarah had died. David's legs finally gave out and he slid down the wall until he was sitting on the cold hospital floor, his head in his hands, most racking his entire body. Dr. Rebecca Foster knelt beside him. When she spoke again, her voice was softer but no less fierce. "I've been doing this for 30 years, Mr. Mitchell. I've seen a lot of families, a lot of love, a lot of grief." She paused. "And I've never, in all my years, seen someone laugh when told a mother died in childbirth." David couldn't look at her. "That woman in the waiting room, she wasn't here to support you. She was here because she thought she'd won something." Rebecca Foster's hand gripped his shoulder. "Your wife fought until her body had nothing left to give. She died trying to bring your children into this world. Don't you dare dishonor that sacrifice." 3 days earlier, David Mitchell had stood in his corner office on the 14th floor of the Pulse Flow Analytics building, watching the sunrise paint the Connecticut skyline in shades of gold and pink, and believed he had everything under control. His startup had gone from a garage operation to an $80 million valuation in 5 years. He'd built something real, something that mattered. The tech blogs called him a visionary. Investors fought for meetings. His VP of sales had just closed a deal with 3 Fortune 500 companies in 1 quarter. His VP of sales, who was currently pressed against him in the private bathroom, connected to his office, her lips on his neck, her hands working to loosen his tie. "We have the board meeting in 20 minutes, David said, but he didn't push Amber away. "Then we better be quick." Amber Cross smiled up at him with the kind of confidence that had first attracted him 8 months ago. She was 29, ambitious, brilliant at her job, and completely unlike his wife in every way that mattered. Sarah was soft, Amber was sharp. Sarah wanted family dinners and quiet evenings. Amber wanted late nights and champagne and the thrill of building an empire. Sarah had given up her career. Amber was just beginning hers. Sarah was pregnant. Amber was free. The thought of Sarah made guilt twist in David's stomach, but Amber's mouth found his, and he let himself forget for just a few more stolen minutes. Later, in the boardroom, David presented the quarterly results while Amber sat 3 seats down, perfectly professional, taking notes on her tablet. Nobody knew. They were careful, always careful. Separate hotel rooms on business trips, different restaurants, never the same Uber. After the meeting, as people filed out, Amber lingered. "Dinner tonight? The new place in New Haven?" "Can't. Sarah's 39 weeks. Her doctor said any day now." Something flickered across Amber's face. "Right, the baby. I know this is hard. It's fine." But her smile was tight. "Just 3 more weeks, right? Then we can finally start making real plans." David's phone buzzed. "Sarah, I should take this." Amber left without another word. David answered to hear his wife's breathless voice. "David, I think something's wrong. My vision is blurry, and I have this terrible headache. The doctor said if I had symptoms like this, I should call immediately." His heart kicked hard against his ribs. "I'm coming home right now. Call your OB. Tell them we're on our way." He grabbed his jacket and ran. By the time he reached their house in the suburbs, Sarah was sitting on the couch, pale and shaking. Her ankles were so swollen her feet looked like balloons. When she stood, she swayed, and he had to catch her. "How long have you been feeling like this?" "Since this morning. I thought it was just normal pregnancy stuff, but then the headache got really bad, and I couldn't see straight, and I got scared." David helped her to the car. As he drove toward the hospital, his phone buzzed repeatedly. Amber. He ignored it. Dr. Rebecca Foster met them in the emergency entrance. She took one look at Sarah, and her face went grim. "How long has your blood pressure been this high?" Dr. Rebecca Foster was checking Sarah's vitals while nurses hooked her up to monitors. "I don't know. It was a little elevated at my last appointment, but you said to watch it. Your pressure is 190/110. That's stroke level. And there's protein in your urine." Dr. Rebecca Foster looked at David. "We're admitting her. This is severe preeclampsia. It could progress to eclampsia, which means seizures. We need to get this baby out, today." Sarah gripped David's hand so hard her nails drew blood. "Today? But I'm not ready. We haven't finished the nursery. I don't have my bag packed. Sarah." Rebecca Foster's voice was kind but firm. "Your body is shutting down. We need to induce labor now. If we wait, you could stroke out, or your organs could fail, or the baby could go into distress. Do you understand?" Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. Okay. They admitted her to a labor and delivery room. The next 18 hours blurred together. Contractions, pain, Sarah begging for an epidural, but the anesthesiologist was in emergency surgery. David holding her hand while she screamed. Nurses coming and going, Dr. Rebecca Foster checking cervix dilation and shaking her head. Around midnight, Sarah's sister Michelle finally arrived, flying in from Seattle. She took one look at Sarah and her face went white. "Oh my God, Em." Michelle had called Sarah Em since they were kids. "You look terrible." "Thanks," Sarah gasped between contractions. "That's exactly what I needed to hear." Michelle pulled David aside in the hallway. "What's going on? She looks awful." "HELP syndrome. They think it might be HELP syndrome. Her liver enzymes are elevated. Her platelets are dropping. If they can't get the baby out soon, they're doing an emergency C-section. And if they do the C-section? David couldn't answer. He'd Googled HELP syndrome on his phone during one of Sarah's rest periods between contractions. Mortality rate up to 25%. Liver failure, kidney failure, stroke, hemorrhage. The words had swum in front of his eyes until he'd had to put the phone away before he threw up. His phone buzzed again. Amber, for the 50th time. He finally answered, stepping into the stairwell where no one could hear. "Where are you?" Amber's voice was sharp. "You missed the investor dinner. Do you know how that looks?" "Sarah's in labor. Complications. I can't talk right now." "David, this is important. The Tokyo deal. My wife is dying." The words exploded out of him. "Do you understand that? She might die. Tonight. Right now." Silence on the other end. Then quietly, "She's not going to die. You're being dramatic." "Dramatic? Her blood pressure is through the roof. Her organs are failing. The doctors are talking about emergency surgery and transfusions and—" His voice broke. "David." Amber's tone changed, became softer. "Listen to me. You're panicking. Sarah is young and healthy. She'll be fine. Women have babies every day. Not like this." "David, I know this is scary, but think about it. Once the baby is here, once she recovers, we can finally move forward with our plans. You can file for divorce. We can be together. This is almost over." The words hit him like a slap. "Did you really just say that? Right now, while my wife is fighting for her life?" "I'm just saying there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that's all." David hung up. He stood in the stairwell, his hands shaking, and for the first time in 8 months, he looked clearly at what he'd become, what he'd done. Sarah was in that room dying, and he was out here on the phone with his mistress. What the hell was wrong with him? He went back to the labor room. Sarah reached for his hand immediately. "Where were you?" "Just needed some air. I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere." At 2:15 in the morning, Sarah's blood pressure crashed. The monitors started screaming. Dr. Rebecca Foster made the call. "Emergency C-section. Now. We can't wait anymore." They wheeled Sarah away. David tried to follow, but the nurses stopped him. "Sir, you can't come in. Not for this. There are too many complications. You'll need to wait outside." "But she's my wife." "Mr. Mitchell." Dr. Rebecca Foster appeared, already in surgical scrubs. "The best thing you can do for Sarah right now is let us work. I promise. We will do everything in our power to bring both her and your baby through this safely." They disappeared through the surgical doors. David stood in the hallway, alone as the minutes ticked by. That's when Amber showed up. She came around the corner in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, carrying 2 coffees from the Starbucks in the hospital lobby. "What are you doing here?" David's voice came out harsher than he'd intended. "You sounded terrible on the phone. I couldn't just leave you alone." She handed him a coffee. "Any news?" "They took her for emergency surgery 15 minutes ago." Amber nodded and sat down in one of the plastic chairs. David wanted to tell her to leave, wanted to scream at her that this was wrong, that she shouldn't be here, that if Sarah came out and saw her, it would destroy everything. But he was so tired, so scared. And Amber was warm and solid beside him while Sarah was in there bleeding out on an operating table. So he let her stay. And an hour and a half later, when Dr. Rebecca Foster walked out with blood on her scrubs and delivered the news that would shatter his world, Amber was standing right beside him, standing there when she laughed. David stood outside the neonatal intensive care unit, staring through the glass at rows of incubators that held the tiniest humans he'd ever seen. Somewhere in that forest of medical equipment were his children, the twins he hadn't known existed until an hour ago, the babies his wife had died bringing into the world. A nurse approached, her name tag reading Jennifer. "Mr. Mitchell? I'm the NICU nurse assigned to your twins. Would you like to meet them?" Meet them like they were strangers at a cocktail party instead of his own children. David nodded because he didn't trust his voice. Jennifer led him through the NICU doors. The beeping of monitors created a symphony of survival. Tiny babies lay in plastic boxes, their chests rising and falling with mechanical assistance, their skin nearly transparent in under the warming lights. "Here we are." Jennifer stopped beside 2 incubators positioned side by side. "This is baby boy Mitchell, and this is baby girl Mitchell." Baby boy, baby girl, not names, not yet. Sarah had spent months choosing names, agonizing over the perfect one for their son. She'd finally decided on Lucas James after her grandfather, but she'd never known about the girl, never had a chance to give her daughter a name. David looked down at the baby on the left. Lucas, 6 pounds, 3 ounces, according to the chart. He was bigger than David expected, with a shock of dark hair and tiny fists that waved in the air like he was already fighting. Even through all the tubes and wires, David could see Sarah in him. The shape of his eyes, the curve of his mouth. "He's doing well," Jennifer said softly. "Strong APGAR scores, good reflexes. We're monitoring him as a precaution, but barring any complications, he should be able to go home in a few days." Home. To a house that didn't have a mother anymore. David moved to the second incubator. The baby girl was smaller, more fragile. 5 pounds, 8 ounces. Her skin had a slight blue tinge that made David's heart clench. She wore a tiny pink cap and was hooked up to more machines than her brother. "She's having some respiratory issues," Jennifer explained. "Nothing major, but her lungs are a bit underdeveloped. We're giving her oxygen and monitoring her closely. She'll need to stay a bit longer than her brother, probably a week or two." "What's wrong with her?" "Nothing's wrong exactly. She's just smaller and needs more support. It's very common with twins, especially when they're premature. Your wife was how far along?" 37 weeks. "That's actually good for twins. Many twins come much earlier. Your wife did an amazing job carrying them both to term." Jennifer paused. "I'm very sorry for your loss, Mr. Mitchell. I know this must be incredibly difficult." David couldn't respond. He stared down at his daughter, this tiny person who existed because Sarah had died. The injustice of it made him want to punch something. Sarah should be here. Sarah should be the one looking at these babies, crying happy tears, taking a million photos, making lists of everything they'd need. Instead, she was in the morgue. The thought made his knees weak. He grabbed the side of the incubator to steady himself. "Would you like to hold them?" Jennifer asked. "I can." "Of course, Lucas is stable enough. Let me get a chair for you." She brought a rocking chair and carefully transferred Lucas from the incubator into David's arms. The baby was so light, so impossibly small. David had never held an infant before. He'd assumed Sarah would teach him, would show him how to do everything. Now he was on his own. Lucas made a small sound, something between a whimper and a sigh. His eyes opened, unfocused and dark, and seemed to look right at David. Then his tiny hand reached out and wrapped around David's finger with surprising strength. Something inside David's chest cracked open. This was his son, his child, a person who would depend on him for everything, who would need him to be strong even when he felt like collapsing, who would grow up without ever knowing the incredible woman who'd given her life to bring him into the world. "I'm sorry," David whispered to Lucas. "I'm so sorry your mom isn't here. She wanted you so much. She loved you so much. And I promise I'm going to make sure you know that. Every single day, I'm going to tell you about her." Lucas yawned, showing pink gums, then settled against David's chest and closed his eyes. The trust in that gesture, the complete surrender, made tears stream down David's face. "She looks like her too," Jennifer said quietly, nodding toward the baby girl. "Your wife, same nose." David looked over at his daughter through blurry eyes. Jennifer was right. Even at barely born, he could see Sarah in her features. 2 children who looked like their mother. 2 living pieces of the woman he'd lost. The woman he'd betrayed. The thought hit him like a fist to the gut. While Sarah had been carrying these babies, enduring the physical toll of a twin pregnancy, dealing with the risks and complications, he'd been sleeping with Amber, making plans to leave, complaining about how the pregnancy had changed things. He'd been planning his exit while Sarah was literally dying, trying to give him a family. The weight of it crushed him. He bent over Lucas, sobbing, while his son slept peacefully in his arms, oblivious to the fact that his father was a monster. A phone buzzed. David's phone, still in his pocket. He shifted Lucas carefully and pulled it out with one hand. 47 missed calls from Amber, and a text message that made his blood run cold. "David, I know you're upset. I know that came out wrong in the hospital. But we need to talk. This changes things, but it doesn't change US. Call me when you can. I love you." "I love you." She'd said she loved him while his wife's body was still warm in the morgue. David deleted the text, blocked Amber's number. Then on impulse, he opened his email and typed out a message to his assistant. Effective immediately, Amber Cross is on administrative leave pending investigation. Please inform her she is not to contact me directly and should direct all questions to HR. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough to make up for what he'd done. But it was a start. Jennifer came back. Would you like me to take him so you can hold your daughter? David nodded. She carefully transferred Lucas back to his incubator and brought the baby girl over. She was even lighter than her brother, more fragile. David was terrified he'd break her. But when she settled into his arms, when her tiny chest rose and fell against his, that same crack in his heart widened. She needs a name, he said quietly. Have you thought of one? Sarah had kept a list. David remembered her scrolling through name websites, reading options out loud to him while he half listened, more focused on his laptop than her excited chatter. Now he'd give anything to hear her voice again, reading name after name until she found the perfect one. One name stood out in his memory. Sarah had said it one night about 3 months ago and then sighed wistfully. Lily Rose. If we ever have a daughter, I want to name her Lily Rose. It was my grandmother's name. David looked down at his daughter. Your name is Lily, he whispered. Lily Rose Mitchell. Your mom chose it, and she would have loved you so much. Lily's eyes flickered open for just a moment. They were blue, like all newborns, but David imagined they'd turn brown like Sarah's, like Lucas's. She made a soft cooing sound and then went back to sleep. David sat there holding his daughter while morning light began to filter through the hospital windows. Around him, other families came and went, visiting their premature babies, praying for miracles. David prayed too for the first time since he was a child. He prayed that he could be the father these babies deserved. The father Sarah had believed he could be, even though he knew he didn't deserve that grace. 7 days after Sarah's death, David stood in the cemetery under a gray October sky and watched them lower his wife into the ground. 200 people had come to pay their respects. Sarah's parents, still too devastated to speak. Her sister Michelle, who delivered the eulogy because David couldn't trust himself to get through it. Friends from college. Former colleagues from Sarah's marketing career. Neighbors, members of the church they'd attended sporadically. And in the back row, wearing black and sunglasses despite the overcast weather, Amber Cross. David spotted her during the service and his jaw clenched so hard he thought his teeth might crack. After he'd put her on administrative leave, after he'd blocked her number, after everything, she'd still shown up. Still couldn't take a hint. Or maybe she'd taken exactly the hint he'd given her and was making a point. Claiming her territory, showing that she was part of his life, whether he wanted her there or not. The priest was saying something about ashes to ashes, dust to dust. David barely heard it. He stared at Sarah's casket, dark cherry wood with brass handles, and tried to reconcile the beautiful polished box with the reality that Sarah was inside it. Cold, silent, gone forever. Michelle stood beside him, holding his arm. She'd been his anchor all week, helping with the funeral arrangements, dealing with the hospital paperwork, even coming to visit Lucas and Lily in the NICU when David was too overwhelmed to go alone. She was going to leave you, Michelle said suddenly, her voice barely audible over the priest's prayer. Did you know that? David's head snapped toward her. What? She knew about the affair. She found the text 3 months ago. She was going to stay until the baby was born, and then she was going to file for divorce. Michelle's eyes, red-rimmed from crying, fixed on his face. She only stayed because she didn't want the baby growing up in a broken home. She was willing to sacrifice her own happiness for that child. The words hit David like bullets. Sarah had known. For 3 months, she'd known, and she'd said nothing. Just kept going to doctor's appointments, kept organizing the nursery, kept pretending everything was fine, while he'd kept lying. I should have told you before, Michelle continued, but she made me promise not to. She said she needed time to figure out what to do, and then she went into labor and... Her voice broke. And now she's dead. David couldn't breathe. The cemetery spun around him. Sarah had known. She'd known, and she'd still fought to bring their babies into the world. She'd still risked everything for children who were half his, the man who'd betrayed her. The service ended. People began filing past the casket, laying flowers, saying final goodbyes. David stood frozen until Michelle squeezed his arm. You need to say goodbye to her. He approached the casket on legs that felt like lead. Someone had placed a single white rose on top, Sarah's favorite flower. He picked it up, inhaled its scent, and memories flooded him. Their first date, when he'd brought her white roses because he had heard her mention them to a friend. Their wedding, where she'd carried a bouquet of white roses. Every anniversary, more white roses. She'd loved them, and he'd forgotten to bring her any in the hospital. In all the chaos of labor and complications and death, he'd forgotten the one thing she'd always loved. I'm sorry, he whispered to the casket. Sarah, I'm so sorry. For all of it. For the lying, the cheating, for not being the husband you deserved. For forgetting your roses. For everything. The casket offered no absolution. Someone touched his shoulder. He turned to find Sarah's father, Robert Jenkins, standing behind him. Robert was 72, a retired Navy captain with a ramrod straight spine and eyes that could cut through steel. She loved you, Robert said, his voice rough with grief. Even after everything, she still loved you. That's the kind of woman she was. Too good. Too forgiving. David couldn't meet his eyes. My daughter is dead because she tried to give you a family, Robert continued. The doctors said the stress of the pregnancy triggered the HELP syndrome, the strain on her body from carrying twins. And you know what I think? I think the stress of your affair didn't help. Mr. Jenkins, I'm not done. Robert's hand on David's shoulder tightened painfully. You have two babies who will never know their mother. Every birthday, every graduation, every milestone, Sarah should be there. But she won't be. Because she's dead, and you have to live with that. You have to look at those babies every single day and remember what it cost to bring them into this world. The old man's eyes filled with tears. I hope it haunts you. I hope every time you see Lucas's smile or Lily's eyes, you see Sarah. And I hope it breaks your heart the way mine is broken. He walked away, leaving David standing alone beside the casket. The cemetery was emptying now. David turned to leave and saw Amber approaching. She'd removed her sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes. Whether from crying or lack of sleep, he couldn't tell. Don't, he said before she could speak. David, I just wanted to say, What could you possibly want to say right now? His voice rose. People who were heading to their cars turned to look. My wife is being buried. The mother of my children is in that box. And you're here? You think this is appropriate? Amber's face flushed. I came to support you. You laughed. The words exploded out of him. When the doctor said Sarah was dead, you laughed. I heard you. Rebecca Foster heard you. Don't pretend you're here out of respect or sympathy. You're here because you think you won something. That's not fair. I was in shock. Get out. David's hands clenched into fists at his sides. Get out of this cemetery. Get out of my life. We're done, Amber. Completely done. You don't mean that. David, we had plans. We were building something. We built nothing. I destroyed my marriage, lost my wife, and for what? For a few stolen moments with someone who can't even show basic human decency at a funeral? He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You are the biggest mistake of my life, and if you ever come near me or my children again, I'll file a restraining order. Do you understand? Amber's face went through a series of emotions. Shock, hurt, then something uglier, anger. You'll regret this, she said quietly. You think you can just throw me away? After everything I did for the company? After I gave up other opportunities to work with you? You didn't give up anything. You're 29 and ambitious, and you saw an opportunity. That's all I was to you, an opportunity. That's rich coming from you. What was I to you, David? An escape? A midlife crisis? Did you ever actually care about me, or was I just convenient? The question hung in the air between them. David realized with a sinking feeling that he didn't have an answer. He'd told himself he loved Amber. He'd told her he loved her. But standing here in a cemetery, having just buried his wife, he couldn't remember why. Couldn't remember what had made her so irresistible that he'd risked everything. She was attractive, exciting, different from Sarah. But love? Had he ever actually loved her? That's what I thought, Amber said, reading his silence correctly. You used me. And now that your wife is gone and the fantasy got too real, you're panicking. Well, congratulations, David. You got what you wanted. You're free now. I hope you enjoy it. She turned and walked away, her heels sinking into the soft cemetery grass. David watched her go and felt nothing. No regret, no longing, no desire to call her back. Just a hollow emptiness, where his marriage used to be. Michelle appeared beside him again. Was that her? Yeah. She's pretty. I can see why you risked everything. The sarcasm in Michelle's voice was acid. Worth it? No, David's voice broke. Nothing was worth this. They lowered Sarah's casket into the ground as the first raindrops began to fall. David stood there until long after everyone else had left, until the cemetery workers had filled in the grave and placed the flowers on top. He stood there until his suit was soaked through and his teeth were chattering. Michelle finally dragged him away. Come on, Lucas and Lily need you. You can't fall apart now. But David felt like he'd already fallen apart, like the pieces of him were scattered across that cemetery, buried in the ground with his wife. He just had to figure out how to put himself back together. For two babies who deserved better than the father they'd gotten. 6 weeks after Sarah's death, David sat in his lawyer's office and listened to Catherine Rhodes explain why Amber Cross was suing him for $5 million. She's claiming intentional infliction of emotional distress, Catherine said, sliding a legal document across her mahogany desk. She alleges that you pursued her romantically, promised to leave your wife, and then abandoned her after your wife's death, causing her severe emotional trauma. David stared at the document, page after page of legalese that all boiled down to one thing. Amber wanted to be paid for their affair. This is insane. It's actually not unprecedented. Catherine was 58 with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and eyes that had seen every kind of legal battle imaginable. Palimony suits, heart bomb claims, they're uncommon but not unheard of. The question is, did you promise to leave your wife? David's silence was answer enough. Multiple times? Yes, Catherine sighed and made notes on her legal pad. And did you have any texts, emails, or other documentation of these promises? I deleted everything after Sarah died. But she wouldn't have. The implications settled over David like a heavy blanket. Amber would have kept everything. Every text where he'd said he loved her. Every email where he'd complained about his marriage. Every late-night message where he'd promised they'd be together once the baby came. All of it could be used against him now. There's more, Catherine said. She's also claiming sexual harassment. Says you leveraged your position as CEO to coerce her into a relationship. That's a lie. The affair was mutual. Can you prove that? David opened his mouth and then closed it. How did you prove mutual consent in an affair? Who kept receipts for that? Her lawyer is smart, Catherine continued. They're painting you as a predatory boss who pursued a younger employee, made promises he never intended to keep, and then discarded her when she became inconvenient. It's compelling. A jury might sympathize. So what do? We fight, and to fight, I need to know everything. Every detail of the affair. When it started, how it started, everything she said or promised. I need access to your phone records, your credit card statements, your hotel bookings. Everything. David spent the next 3 hours recounting the affair in excruciating detail. Every lie he'd told Sarah, every night he'd pretended to work late, every weekend business trip that had actually been a hotel room with Amber. By the time he was done, he felt sick. Okay, Catherine said, finishing her notes. This isn't great, but it's not terrible. The fact that you ended things immediately after your wife's death actually works in our favor. It shows you were grieving, not manipulating. And the funeral incident, where she showed up uninvited, that demonstrates poor judgment on her part. What about the hospital? What about it? David hadn't told anyone this part. Not the police, not his family, not even Michelle. But sitting here in Catherine's office, surrounded by law books and the smell of expensive leather, he finally let it out. She laughed. When the doctor told me Sarah was dead, Amber laughed. Catherine's pen stopped moving. She looked up slowly. She what? It was just one sound, quick, but I heard it. The doctor heard it too. Dr. Rebecca Foster. She threw Amber out of the hospital. Why didn't you mention this before? I don't know. I don't know, maybe I imagined it, or maybe it doesn't matter. It matters, Catherine was writing furiously now. It matters a lot. If we can get Dr. Rebecca Foster to testify about that, it completely changes the narrative. Amber's not the heartbroken victim of a manipulative boss. She's a callous opportunist who was waiting for your wife to die. David felt sick. You think that's what she was doing? Waiting? I think we need to find out. David, I'm going to hire a private investigator. I want to know everything about Amber Cross, where she came from, what she did before Pulse Flow, who she's dated, everything. If she has a pattern of going after wealthy men, married men, it helps our case. How long will that take? A few weeks. In the meantime, do not contact her. Don't respond to any messages. Don't talk about her with anyone. And especially don't post anything on social media about your relationship with your children or Sarah's death. Everything can and will be used in court. David left Catherine's office feeling like he'd been hit by a truck. He drove to the hospital where Lucas and Lily were still in the NICU. Lily was improving but still needed respiratory support. Lucas had been ready to go home for weeks, but David couldn't bring himself to separate the twins. They'd come into the world together. They should go home together. Look who's here, Nurse Jennifer said when David arrived. Your favorite person. Lucas was awake in his incubator, kicking his legs. He was 2 months old now and had grown considerably. His dark hair had thickened, and his eyes, which had started out blue, were shifting to brown. Sarah's brown. David washed his hands and lifted Lucas out carefully. The baby made happy gurgling sounds and immediately grabbed for David's finger. It was their routine now. David would hold Lucas while Lily slept, then switch when Lily woke up. He'd learned to change diapers, mix formula, identify different types of cries, all the things Sarah was supposed to teach him. How's Lily doing today? David asked. Better. Her oxygen levels are improving. Patel thinks maybe another week and she can go home. Home, David had been putting off thinking about that. The house was still full of Sarah's things. Her clothes in the closet, her toothbrush by the sink, the sage green nursery she'd spent months preparing, now needing 2 of everything. Michelle had offered to help him pack up Sarah's belongings. David had told her he wasn't ready. The truth was, he didn't know if he'd ever be ready to erase Sarah from that house. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You can't ignore me forever. We need to talk about the lawsuit. I'm willing to settle for $3 million if you drop the harassment claim from my employment record. Amber. She must have gotten a new number after he'd blocked her. David deleted the text without responding. Catherine had said no contact. He'd follow her advice. Another text came through immediately. I know you're reading these. I saw you at the hospital parking lot yesterday. Still visiting the babies every day? Such a devoted father. Too bad you weren't a devoted husband. David's hand tightened on his phone. How did she know he was at the hospital every day? Was she following him? A third text. $3 million, David. That's my final offer. Otherwise, I'll see you in court. And I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. David forwarded the text to Catherine and turned off his phone. Lucas had fallen asleep in his arms. David looked down at his son's peaceful face and made a decision. Whatever Amber wanted, whatever she was threatening, he wouldn't let it touch his children. He'd pay her off, settle the lawsuit, whatever it took to make her go away. Because Lucas and Lily had already lost their mother. They weren't going to lose their father too, even if that father didn't deserve them. 3 weeks after Amber's text, Catherine's private investigator delivered a file that changed everything. Marcus Reed had spent 20 years with the NYPD before going private. He was methodical, thorough, and had a talent for finding dirt that people thought they'd buried. The file he handed Catherine was 3 inches thick. Catherine called David to her office immediately. You need to see this. She spread documents across her desk, bank statements, email printouts, text message logs, and photos. Lots of photos. Amber Cross isn't who she says she is, Catherine began. Her real name is Amber Jane Hutchins. She changed it legally 4 years ago. Why would she change her name? to hide her past. Before she was your VP of sales, she worked for a hedge fund in New York. Dated one of the senior partners, a married man named Richard Drummond. Sound familiar? David's stomach turned. The affair lasted 8 months. Amber was his executive assistant. She got pregnant, or claimed to, told Richard she was keeping the baby and he needed to leave his wife. When he refused, she sued him for sexual harassment and emotional distress. Sound familiar yet? Oh my God. It gets better. The hedge fund settled for $1.2 million to make the lawsuit go away. Part of the settlement was a non-disclosure agreement and a promise from Amber to resign quietly. She took the money, moved to Connecticut, changed her name, and started fresh. Catherine flipped to another document. Before New York, she was in Boston. Different name then, Amber Hutchins. Dated another married executive. No lawsuit that time, but she did receive a substantial, quote, gift of $300,000 shortly before their affair ended. David felt like he was going to be sick. She's done this before, multiple times. She has a pattern. Target successful married men in their late 30s to mid-40s. Start an affair. Get pregnant or claim to. Push for them to leave their wives. If they refuse or the relationship ends, threaten a lawsuit. Settle for cash and move on to the next mark. I was a mark. You were a mark. And David, there's more. Catherine pulled out another document. This is Amber's search history from her work computer at PulseFlow. We got it through discovery in the harassment lawsuit. Look at the dates. David scanned the printout. His blood ran cold. January 15th. Connecticut inheritance laws, married couple. February 3rd. Life insurance, payout, death spouse. February 28th. Preeclampsia mortality rate. March 10th. HELP syndrome, fatal pregnancy. March 16th. Widower remarriage, how soon? April 5th. Stepmother writes biological mother dead. The searches went on and on. Amber had been researching Sarah's death for months before it happened. She'd been studying the laws, the statistics, the possibilities. She was planning this, David said, his voice barely a whisper. She was waiting for Sarah to die. It looks that way. And David, there's one more thing. The really damning thing. Catherine pulled out a final document. This is from Amber's personal laptop. Marcus got it through a forensic data recovery service. She deleted the file, but it was still in her hard drive cache. It's a journal entry dated 4 months before Sarah's death. She handed David a printout. He read it, and with each word, the horror grew. David's wife has severe preeclampsia. I researched it. Mortality rate is significant if it progresses. With her age and the pregnancy complications, odds aren't great. If she dies in childbirth, David becomes a widower with assets intact. No messy divorce, no splitting the company 50-50. Just a grieving husband who'll need support. I've been patient this long. I can wait a little longer. When it happens, I'll be there. I'll be exactly what he needs. And this time, I won't have to threaten a lawsuit to get what I deserve. David's hands shook. He read it again and again. Amber hadn't just hoped Sarah would die. She'd planned for it, waited for it, researched the odds like she was calculating an investment return. This is evidence, Catherine said quietly, of conspiracy to benefit from death, of insurance fraud if she tried to position herself as a beneficiary. And David, I checked. She did. She pulled out another document. 6 weeks before Sarah's death, someone filed paperwork to add Amber Cross as a beneficiary to your company's life insurance policy. The signature looks like yours, but I'm betting it's forged. David stared at the signature. It looked like his, but the handwriting was slightly off. I never signed this. I didn't think so. I'm having a handwriting expert examine it. But if we can prove forgery, combined with the journal entry and search history, we have her on fraud. Serious fraud. Criminal charges, fraud. What do? We go to the district attorney today, and we request that Amber Cross be arrested. The arrest happened 72 hours later. Amber was at a Starbucks in downtown Hartford, meeting with her lawyer to discuss the lawsuit strategy, when 2 detectives walked in. Amber Cross, you're under arrest for insurance fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Customers turned to stare. Amber's face went white, then red. This is ridiculous. I haven't done anything wrong. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. They cuffed her right there in the coffee shop. Someone filmed it on their phone. By that evening, the video had gone viral. Tech CEO's mistress arrested in hospital death scandal. The media descended. David's company, Pulse Flow Analytics, made the national news. Reporters camped outside his house. His phone rang constantly with a request for interviews. Catherine advised him to say nothing. Let the evidence speak for itself. The DA has enough to prosecute. You don't need to add fuel to the fire. But David couldn't help reading the articles. Couldn't stop watching the news coverage. Couldn't look away from the online comments. He cheated on his dying wife and now wants to play victim? They're both terrible. She's a con artist. He's an adulterer. No sympathy for either. Those poor babies, growing up with this as their family history. That last comment hit hardest. Lucas and Lily would grow up knowing their mother died giving birth to them, knowing their father had been having an affair when it happened, knowing their father's mistress had been arrested for essentially hoping their mother would die. What kind of legacy was that? David sat in the NICU holding Lily, who was finally strong enough to go home. Darpato had signed the discharge papers that morning. Both babies were healthy and ready to leave the hospital, ready to come home to a father who didn't know how to raise them alone. Mr. Mitchell? Nurse Jennifer approached. There's someone here to see you. She says she's from Child Protective Services. David's heart stopped. CPS? Why? Apparently, there's been concerns raised about your ability to care for the twins given the ongoing legal issues and media attention. She just wants to do an assessment, make sure the home environment is stable. This was Amber's doing. David knew it. This was her revenge for the arrest. If she couldn't have him, she'd make sure he lost his children too. The CPS worker was a tired-looking woman named Patricia Williams. She asked David questions about his support system, his mental health, his plans for childcare. She toured the house, examined the nursery, reviewed his financial records. Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to be frank with you, Patricia said at the end of her visit. You've been through a tremendous trauma. Your wife died, you're raising newborn twins alone, you're dealing with a lawsuit and a criminal case involving your former mistress. That's a lot for anyone to handle. I can handle it. I believe you want to. But wanting to and being able to are different things. I'm recommending that you engage in grief counseling and parenting classes. I'd also like to schedule follow-up visits over the next 6 months to ensure the twins are thriving. Are you taking them away from me? Not at this time, but Mr. Mitchell, those babies need stability. They need a parent who can focus on them, not on legal battles and media circuses. Can you give them that? David looked at Lucas sleeping in his car seat and Lily in his arms. They were so small, so dependent, so completely innocent in all of this. Yes, he said. Whatever it takes, yes. Patricia left him with a packet of resources. Grief support groups, single father parenting classes, therapist referrals. David added them all to a growing pile of things he needed to handle. His phone rang. Catherine. The grand jury indicted Amber on all counts. She's being arraigned tomorrow. David, this is good, very good. Her lawsuit is going to get thrown out. No judge will take her case seriously now that she's facing criminal charges. What about my kids? CPS just left. That's expected. It's standard procedure in high-profile cases. Just do what they ask. Go to counseling. Take the parenting classes. Show them you're stable and committed. They'll close the case. After Catherine hung up, David sat in the quiet house holding his daughter. Lucas was asleep in the nursery upstairs. The house that had once been full of Sarah's presence now felt empty and cold. He thought about Sarah's journal entries, the videos she'd recorded for the baby, the letter she'd written. She'd known she might not make it. She'd prepared for that possibility, and she'd forgiven him. Even after everything he'd done, she'd forgiven him and asked him to be the father their children needed. He didn't deserve that forgiveness, but he'd spend the rest of his life trying to earn it anyway. The trial of Amber Cross began on a cold January morning, 4 months after Sarah's death. David sat in the gallery beside Catherine Rhodes and watched as Amber was led into the courtroom in handcuffs. She'd lost weight. Her designer clothes had been replaced with an ill-fitting suit from Target. Her hair, once professionally highlighted, had grown out to show dark roots. She looked like what she was, a woman whose carefully constructed facade had crumbled. The prosecution's case was devastating. They presented the journal entries, the search history, the forged beneficiary form, text messages where Amber had told friends she was playing the long game with David, emails to her sister where she'd calculated David's net worth and discussed her retirement plan. The defense tried to argue that thoughts weren't crimes, that Amber's private musings about Sarah's potential death didn't constitute conspiracy, that the affair had been mutual and consensual. But then the prosecution called Dr. Rebecca Foster to the stand. To Rebecca Foster, you were the attending physician when Sarah Mitchell died, correct? Yes. Can you describe what happened in the hallway after you informed Mr. Mitchell of his wife's death? Rebecca Foster's voice was steady and clinical. I told Mr. Mitchell that his wife had passed away due to complications from HELP syndrome. He was understandably distraught. There was a woman standing beside him. I later learned her name was Amber Cross. What did Ms. Cross do when you delivered this news? She laughed. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel for order. Amber's face had gone chalk white. Could you describe the laugh, Dr. Rebecca Foster? It was short, a single sound, almost like a bark. She tried to cover it immediately, but it was unmistakable. I've been a physician for 30 years. I've delivered thousands of babies, and I've seen families receive tragic news many times. I have never, not once, heard someone laugh when told a mother died in childbirth. What did you do? I had security remove her from the hospital. Her behavior was inappropriate and disturbing. The defense attorney tried to recover on cross-examination. Dr. Rebecca Foster, isn't it possible Ms. Cross laughed out of shock? People react strangely to traumatic news. I'm a medical professional. I know the difference between shock and satisfaction. What I witnessed was not shock. The defense called Amber to testify in her own defense. It was a mistake. Ms. Cross, the prosecution has presented evidence that you researched Mrs. Mitchell's medical condition extensively. Can you explain why? Amber's lawyer had clearly coached her, but under pressure, her story fell apart. I was concerned for David. His wife had complications. I wanted to understand what he was going through. And so you researched inheritance laws and life insurance payouts out of concern? I was just trying to understand the financial implications if something happened. David was stressed about money and the company, and did you tell Mr. Mitchell you loved him? Yes. Did you discuss a future together? Yes. Did that future include his wife? Amber faltered. I thought we hoped that eventually David would get divorced. But his wife died before he could file for divorce. That worked out well for you, didn't it? Objection! Amber's lawyer shot to his feet. Sustained. But the damage was done. The prosecution's closing argument was simple and damning. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about a woman who saw an opportunity and took it. She targeted a wealthy married man. She started an affair. She researched his wife's medical condition and realized there was a chance, a real chance, that the wife might die in childbirth. And she waited. She positioned herself to benefit financially if that death occurred. She forged documents to add herself as a life insurance beneficiary. And when Sarah Mitchell did die, when she left behind 2 newborn babies and a grieving husband, Amber Cross laughed because her plan had worked. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. On the count of insurance fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of forgery, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of conspiracy to commit fraud, we find the defendant guilty. Amber's face crumpled. Her lawyer put a hand on her shoulder. She was led away in handcuffs, and David felt absolutely nothing. No triumph, no relief, just a hollow emptiness. Because even with Amber convicted, even with justice served, it didn't bring Sarah back. The judge scheduled sentencing for 3 weeks later. Catherine expected Amber would get 2 to 3 years in prison, plus restitution. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed David. Mr. Mitchell, how do you feel about the verdict? Mr. Mitchell, do you have any comment about your affair? Mr. Mitchell, what about your children? Catherine pulled him away. No comment to anything. They climbed into her car and drove away from the circus. David's phone buzzed with messages. His parents offering support. Michelle saying she'd watched the news coverage and she was glad Amber had been held accountable. Friends from college reaching out after years of silence. And one message from an unknown number. You destroyed my life. I hope you're happy. Amber. She must have gotten access to a phone somehow. David deleted it without responding and blocked the number. It's over, Catherine said as they drove back toward David's house. The criminal case is done. Her civil lawsuit will be dismissed. You can move on now. Move on, like it was that simple. Like he could just forget the past 4 months and start fresh. David looked out the window at the gray January landscape. Snow was starting to fall, light flakes that wouldn't stick but made everything look bleak and cold. I need to do something, he said suddenly. What? The money from the settlement, the restitution she'll have to pay, and the life insurance payout from Sarah's policy. I don't want it, any of it. David, that's a substantial amount. You have 2 children to raise. I want to start a foundation in Sarah's name for HELP syndrome research and support for families affected by maternal mortality. Catherine was quiet for a moment. That's a good idea, a really good idea. Sarah shouldn't have died. If there had been better screening, earlier detection, maybe she'd still be alive. I can't bring her back, but maybe I can help make sure other women don't die the way she did. I'll draw up the paperwork. They pulled up to David's house. The media had mostly moved on to other stories, but there was still a lone reporter camped outside. Catherine honked and the reporter scrambled away. David went inside. His nanny Carla was in the living room with the twins. Lucas was on a playmat, grabbing at dangling toys. Lily was asleep in her bouncer chair. How did it go? Carla asked quietly. Guilty on all counts. Carla nodded. She'd been with David for 2 months now, helping him learn to be a father. She was kind, patient, and never asked questions about the trial or the affair or any of it. She just showed up every day and helped him keep Lucas and Lily alive and loved. David paid her well. It was the least he could do. He picked up Lucas, who immediately grabbed his nose. The baby had discovered faces recently and thought they were the most interesting toys in the world. David let him explore, pulling on his ear, poking his cheek, grabbing his glasses. Da-da-da, Lucas babbled. He's been doing that all day, Carla said with a smile. I think he's trying to say your name. Daddy, the word David had dreamed about for years when he and Sarah were trying to get pregnant, when they'd endured test after test, procedure after procedure, hoping for a baby. Now he had 2 babies, and no wife to share them with. The unfairness of it crashed over him again. Sarah should be here. Sarah should be the one hearing Lucas's first attempts at speech. She should be the one chronicling every milestone, taking 1,000 photos, making scrapbooks. Instead, it was just David, doing his best and knowing it would never be enough. Lily woke up with a cry. David carefully put Lucas back on the playmat and picked up his daughter. She was so tiny still, barely 15 pounds at 4 months old. The doctor said she'd catch up eventually, that preemies often took longer to grow. But holding her felt like holding a fragile bird. Hey, little one, did you have a good nap? Lily blinked up at him with serious brown eyes. Sarah's eyes. Both twins had them. Sometimes David could barely look at their faces because all he saw was Sarah staring back at him. His phone rang. He answered without checking the caller ID, expecting Catherine with some follow-up from the trial. Instead, he heard a voice he hadn't heard in months. Amber's voice. I'll appeal. I'll fight this all the way to the Supreme Court if I have to. You don't get to destroy my life and walk away clean. How did you get this number? I have friends. You think you've won, but you haven't. I'll make sure everyone knows what you really are. I'll write a book. I'll do interviews. I'll tell them all about how you pursued me, how you promised me everything, how you used me and threw me away. By the time I'm done, no one will ever trust you again. David hung up and immediately called Catherine. She just threatened me. Phone call from a different number. She said she'd tell her story publicly. Catherine sighed. She's desperate. I'll file for a restraining order. And David, you might want to consider putting out your own statement. Control the narrative before she does. I don't want to talk to the media. You might not have a choice. That night, after Carla went home and the twins were asleep, David sat in his home office and tried to write a statement. Something to explain his side. Something to acknowledge his mistakes while defending his character. But every word felt hollow. How did you explain an affair? How did you justify the choices that had led to your wife's death? He thought about what Sarah would want him to say. She'd probably want him to be honest, to own his mistakes, to show their children that people could mess up badly and still try to be better. So he wrote the truth. I made terrible choices. I had an affair while my wife was pregnant. I lied to her and betrayed her trust. Those are facts I will carry with me for the rest of my life. My wife, Sarah, died giving birth to our twins. She shouldn't have died. She was young and healthy, and she deserved to see her children grow up. The fact that she didn't is a tragedy. Amber Cross's actions after Sarah's death were calculated and cruel. But my actions before Sarah's death were also wrong. I own that. I live with that every day. All I can do now is try to be the father my children deserve and honor my wife's memory by being better than I was. He sent it to Catherine. She approved it. They released it the next morning. The response was mixed. Some people appreciated his honesty. Others said it wasn't enough. Still others said he was trying to play victim when he'd created the whole mess. David stopped reading comments after an hour. It didn't matter what strangers thought. All that mattered was Lucas and Lily, and making sure they knew their mother had been extraordinary, even if their father had been anything but. 6 months after Sarah's death, Michelle showed up at David's house with a cardboard box. I found this in storage, she said, setting it on the kitchen counter. Mom was cleaning out the garage and came across it. Sarah must have put it there months ago. It has your name on it. David stared at the box, written in Sarah's familiar handwriting. For David, open when you're ready. He'd never be ready, but he opened it anyway. Inside were several items. 2 baby albums, pre-made with spaces for photos of Lucas and Lily, a flash drive, and an envelope with "Read this first" written on it. David's hands shook as he opened the envelope. David, the letter began, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I wrote this at 38 weeks, sitting in the nursery, feeling our baby kick and trying not to be scared. But I am scared. Scared I won't make it through labor. Scared you'll be alone. Scared our baby will grow up without me. My tears blurred David's vision, but he kept reading. I know about Amber. I've known for 3 months. I found the texts. I saw the hotel receipts. I know you've been lying to me about working late. I'm not stupid, David. I just chose not to confront you because I didn't want the stress to harm the baby. But I want you to know that I knew. David's breath caught. She'd known. She'd known and never said a word. I was planning to leave you after the baby came. I'd already talked to a lawyer. I was going to file for divorce and fight for full custody because the man who could cheat on his wife while she's carrying his child isn't someone I want raising my baby alone. The words were daggers, each one finding its mark. But then I thought about birthdays, first steps, Christmas mornings, all the moments our child would experience splitting time between 2 houses, 2 parents who couldn't stand to be in the same room. And I realized I didn't want that either. So I was going to give you one chance, one real chance to choose us, to end the affair, to be the husband and father I always believed you could be. I don't know if you would have taken that chance. I'll never know now. David was sobbing openly now, the letter shaking in his hands. But here's what I do know. You're a good man who made terrible choices. You're ambitious and smart and capable of great things. You're also selfish and cowardly, and sometimes you run from problems instead of facing them. All of that is true. Both versions of you exist. Our baby needs the good version, the version who works hard and dreams big and wants to build something meaningful, not the version who lies and cheats and takes the easy way out. Be the good version, David, for our child, for yourself, for me. I love you. I've always loved you. Even now, even knowing what I know, part of me still loves you. I don't know if that makes me weak or strong, but it's the truth. Take care of our baby. Tell them about me. Show them pictures. Share memories. Don't let them forget I existed. Don't let them think I didn't want them desperately. I'm sorry I won't be there to help you. I'm sorry you'll have to figure out parenthood alone. But you can do it. I know you can. You just have to choose to. Be better, David. Be the man I married, not the man you became. Love always, Sarah. David folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. Then he picked up the flash drive with trembling hands. The drive contained videos, 23 videos, each recorded at a different week of Sarah's pregnancy. David plugged it into his laptop and clicked the first one. Sarah's face filled the screen. She was sitting in the nursery, the sage green walls visible behind her. She was maybe 20 weeks pregnant, just starting to show. "Hi, baby," she said to the camera, her hand on her small bump. "It's Mommy. I'm making these videos just in case. Just in case something happens and I don't get to meet you. I hope I never need them. I hope you're watching these when you're older and I'm right there beside you, embarrassed that I recorded all this sentimental stuff." She laughed. "But if I'm not there, if something went wrong, I need you to know some things." David watched all 23 videos that night. Watched Sarah's belly grow. Watched her struggle to find comfortable positions to sit in as the pregnancy progressed. Watched her talk about names she liked, nursery rhymes she wanted to sing, books she wanted to read. In video 15, recorded at 33 weeks, Sarah's tone changed. "I'm getting scared," she admitted. "My blood pressure has been high. The doctor is concerned about preeclampsia. She says if it gets worse, we might have to deliver early. I'm trying to stay calm, but I'm terrified." Her hand rubbed her belly in slow circles. "I need you to know something, baby. If it comes down to a choice, if the doctors have to choose between saving me or saving you, I want them to save you. Do you understand? Your life is more important than mine. You have your whole future ahead of you. Mine is already lived." David paused the video and had to step away. He went to check on the twins, who were sleeping peacefully in their cribs. Lucas had his fist in his mouth. Lily was curled on her side, her favorite position. These babies existed because Sarah had chosen them over herself. She'd known the risks, and she'd decided they were worth it. How did he live up to that sacrifice? He went back to the videos. In the final one, recorded 2 days before she went into labor, Sarah looked exhausted and swollen, but she smiled at the camera. 38 weeks, 6 days. "Any day now, baby. I'm ready to meet you. I'm scared, but I'm ready. I hope you have your daddy's intelligence and my stubbornness. I hope you're healthy and happy and loved." She paused, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I hope I'm there to see you grow up. But if I'm not, if something happens, know that I fought for you. Every single day I carried you, I fought. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I love you more than anything in this world, more than life itself. Be good for your daddy, okay? He's going to need your patience. He's never been around babies before." She laughed through tears. "But he has a good heart. Give him a chance to figure it out. I love you, sweet baby. I can't wait to hold you." The video ended. David sat in the dark office, staring at the blank screen, and finally let himself fall completely apart. Not the controlled crying he'd done at the funeral or the quiet tears he sometimes shed late at night. This was full-body sobbing, the kind that came from a place of absolute devastation. Sarah had known she might die. She'd prepared for it. And she'd still chosen to go through with the pregnancy, to take the risk, to fight until her body had nothing left. While he'd been planning to leave her for Amber, the comparison was so stark, so damning, that David wanted to crawl out of his own skin. Michelle found him there an hour later, still sitting in the dark. "I saw the light from outside. I got worried." She came in and saw the flash drive, the open laptop. "You watched them. All of them." Michelle sat beside him. "She wanted you to have those. She wanted Lucas and Lily to have them. She believed in you, David, even after everything. She shouldn't have. I didn't deserve that faith." "No," Michelle agreed. "You didn't. But she gave it anyway." That was who Sarah was. Too forgiving, too hopeful, too good for any of us. They sat in silence for a while. Then Michelle spoke again. "Are you going to show the videos to the twins?" "When they're older, when they're old enough to understand." "Good. They need to know her. They need to know how much she wanted them. I tell them every day, every night before bed, I show them pictures and tell them stories about their mom. I don't want them to forget. They won't, because you won't let them." Michelle stood. "Sarah believed you could be a good father. Prove her right. After Michelle left, David went upstairs to the nursery. Lucas and Lily were still asleep. He sat in the rocking chair between their cribs and made a promise. Your mom loved you more than anything. She gave her life to give you yours. And I promise I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know that. I'll tell you about her every day. I'll show you videos and pictures. I'll take you to her grave and we'll bring white roses, her favorite. You'll know her even though she's gone. I swear it. Lucas stirred in his sleep but didn't wake. Lily's hand twitched. And I promise I'll be the father she believed I could be. The good version. Not the coward who had an affair. The man who works hard and loves fiercely and protects his family. That's who I'm going to be, for you. He stayed in that chair until morning, watching his children sleep, and for the first time since Sarah's death, he felt something other than guilt and grief. He felt purpose. Lucas and Lily's first birthday fell on a bright October morning, unseasonably warm. David had spent weeks planning the party, obsessing over every detail the way Sarah would have. The theme was butterflies. Sarah had loved butterflies. He decorated the backyard with butterfly balloons, butterfly plates, butterfly napkins. He'd ordered a cake from the bakery Sarah always used, vanilla with buttercream frosting and colorful butterflies made of fondant. 50 people came, Michelle and her husband, Sarah's parents who'd maintained an icy distance from David, but came for their grandchildren. David's parents, still unsure how to navigate their son's spectacular fall from grace. Friends, neighbors, even a few co-workers from PulseFlow, though David had stepped down as CEO 6 months ago to focus on the twins. The company had been sold. David had taken his share and used half to establish the Sarah Mitchell Foundation. The other half went into trust funds for Lucas and Lily. He didn't need the money. He needed to know his children would be secure no matter what happened. He'd started working as a consultant, taking on projects he could do from home. It didn't pay as well as running a company, but it let him be present for every moment of his children's lives. Every first, every milestone, everything Sarah had missed. Lucas was walking now, stumbling around the yard in his little sneakers, grabbing at balloons. Lily was more cautious, still preferring to crawl, but she'd taken a few steps earlier that week. Both babies were healthy, thriving, perfect. David watched them and felt a complicated mix of emotions. Joy at seeing them happy, pride in how far they'd come, and an aching, endless grief for the woman who should be here seeing this. They're beautiful, Sarah's mother, Patricia said quietly. She'd come up beside David without him noticing. Sarah would be so proud. I wish she could see them. She can. Patricia touched his arm. I believe that. I have to believe it. It was the first kind thing Sarah's mother had said to him since the funeral. David felt his throat tighten. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry for what I did to her, to you, to all of you. Patricia nodded slowly. I know you are. And David, I need to tell you something. Something Sarah told me a few weeks before she died. David braced himself. She said she was going to give you another chance. She said she still believed in you, despite everything. She said people make mistakes, but that doesn't mean they can't change. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. She died believing you'd prove her right. Don't make her wrong. I won't, I promise. The party continued. Lucas smashed his face into his cake with enthusiasm, getting frosting everywhere. Lily was more delicate, picking up small pieces and examining them before eating. People laughed and took photos, and for a few hours it felt almost normal. David gave a short speech before cutting the cake. Thank you all for coming to celebrate Lucas and Lily's first birthday. I know this past year has been hard for all of us, but these two amazing kids have brought so much light into the darkness. They're the best of their mother. Her kindness, her determination, her beautiful spirit. He looked at the twins. Your mom isn't here, but she loved you more than anything in the world. Everything I do every day is to honor that love. Happy birthday, Lucas. Happy birthday, Lily. I'm so proud to be your dad. Later, after everyone had gone home and Carla had taken the twins upstairs for their nap, David sat in the backyard among the deflating balloons and leftover cake crumbs. Michelle came out to join him. That was a good party, Sarah would have approved. I tried to do it the way she would have wanted. You did great. Michelle hesitated. Have you heard anything about Amber? She was released from prison 3 months ago, served 18 months of her 3-year sentence, got out early for good behavior. David's voice was flat. Her lawyer sent a letter asking if I'd write a statement for her parole hearing. I declined. Good, she doesn't deserve your help. No, she doesn't. But Michelle, I need to tell you something. David turned to face his sister-in-law. I don't think about her anymore. I don't hate her. I don't even feel angry. She's just gone from my life, like she never existed. That's healthy, I think. Is it? Sometimes I wonder if I should feel more. Anger or regret or something, but there's nothing. Just this emptiness where the affair used to be. Like it happened to a different person. Michelle considered this. Maybe it did. Maybe the David who had that affair died with Sarah, and the David sitting here now is someone different. I hope so. I want to be different. Better. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. David thought about the past year, the trial, the videos from Sarah, the nights sitting up with sick babies, the first smiles, the first laughs, the tiny moments that built a life. He'd lost Sarah. He'd destroyed his marriage and his reputation. He'd become a cautionary tale in tech circles and in parenting forums. But he'd gained something too. He'd gained the chance to know his children, to be present for them in a way he probably wouldn't have been if Sarah had lived and he'd gone through with the divorce. The thought made him feel guilty, as if he'd somehow benefited from Sarah's death. But it was also true. This year of single parenting had transformed him, forced him to become someone capable of putting someone else's needs first, taught him patience and humility and love without conditions. I started dating someone, Michelle said suddenly. David looked at her in surprise. Michelle had been divorced for 5 years and had sworn off relationships. That's great. Who is he? She, actually. Her name is Rebecca. We met at a grief support group. You're going to grief support? For Sarah, I needed it, losing my sister. Michelle's voice cracked. It's been really hard, David. I know it's been hard for you too, but she was my best friend, my whole life, and now she's gone. David reached over and took Michelle's hand. I'm sorry. I know I've been wrapped up in the twins and the legal stuff. I should have checked on you more. It's okay. You've been dealing with your own grief. But yeah, I met Rebecca at the group. She lost her brother to cancer. We got talking, started getting coffee after meetings. And now, she smiled through tears. Now I'm in love with her, which feels weird to say out loud because Sarah's only been gone a year and I feel guilty being happy. Sarah would want you to be happy. I know, but still. They talked until the stars came out. About Sarah, about memories, about the future. When Michelle finally left, David went inside and climbed the stairs to the nursery. Lucas and Lily were asleep in their cribs. David stood between them, one hand on each railing, and whispered his nightly promise. Your mom loved you. I love you. And tomorrow we'll get up and do it all again. Every day, for the rest of your lives. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Downstairs on the kitchen counter, the box from Sarah still sat open. David went down and pulled out the baby albums she'd started. He began filling them in, photos from the party, pictures of Lucas eating cake, Lily's serious expression as she examined a butterfly balloon. He wrote captions the way Sarah would have. First birthday, Lucas discovered that cake is the best food in the world. Lily was skeptical. Surrounded by family who loved them. Wish you were here to see it, Sarah. 1 year without you, the hardest year of my life, but also the most important. You gave me these 2 perfect humans. I'll spend the rest of my life being worthy of that gift. He worked until midnight, filling page after page. When he was done, he put the albums on a shelf in the twins' room, where they could look at them someday and see both their parents, the mother who died loving them, and the father who was learning how to. 5 years later, the elementary school auditorium smelled like poster paint and graham crackers. David sat in an uncomfortable folding chair, his phone camera writing, watching the stage where 20 kindergartners were about to perform their first school play. Lucas stood in the back row wearing construction paper rabbit ears and a nervous expression. Lily was front and center, confident as ever in her butterfly costume. "Is it starting?" Carla whispered from the seat beside him. She'd been with them for 5 years now, more family than employee. 2 more minutes, according to the program. Michelle slid into the seat on David's other side, slightly out of breath. "Sorry, traffic was terrible. Did I miss anything?" "Not yet." The lights dimmed, parents shushed each other. David raised his phone and hit record. The play was about spring. Lucas said his 2 lines perfectly, though so quietly David barely heard them. Lily belted out her song about butterflies transforming from caterpillars, gesturing wildly and not quite hitting the notes. David recorded every second. After the performance, he waited outside the auditorium for the twins to emerge. They ran him together, Lily's butterfly wings knocking into Lucas's rabbit ears. "Did you see me?" Lily demanded. "Did you see my song?" "I saw everything. You were amazing." "I messed up the second verse," Lucas said quietly. "I didn't notice. You were perfect." They walked to the car, the twins chattering about who forgot their lines and who stepped on whose foot. David loaded them into their car seats, helped them buckle, listened to their overlapping stories. These were his favorite moments, the ordinary ones, the unremarkable Tuesday afternoons and Thursday morning school drop-offs, the skinned knees and homework battles and bedtime negotiations, the life Sarah had died to give them. At home, David made dinner while the twins did homework at the kitchen table. Mac and cheese, their favorite. Carla had left for the day, heading to her own family. Michelle had declined the dinner invitation, saying she had plans with Rebecca. After dinner, bath time. After bath time, story time. David read from Charlotte's Web, doing different voices for each character. The twins had heard this book a dozen times, but they never got tired of Ed. "Daddy," Lily said as he closed the book, "tell us about Mom." It was a nightly ritual. Sometimes they asked specific questions. Sometimes they just wanted him to talk. Tonight, David pulled out his phone and showed them a video. Sarah at 20 weeks, talking to the camera about baby names. "I like Oliver for a boy," Sarah was saying. "Or maybe Sebastian, or Lucas. Lucas is nice, strong, classic." "That's my name." Lucas pointed at the screen, delighted as always. "Your mom picked it out before you were even born." They watched 3 more videos. Then David showed them photos. Sarah at their wedding, Sarah graduating college, Sarah at a work conference, professional and confident. "She was pretty," Lily said. "She was beautiful, inside and out." "Do you miss her?" David looked at his daughter's serious face. "Every single day." "But you're happy now too, right? You can be both." The wisdom in that question from a 5-year-old made David's chest ache. "Yeah, sweetheart, you can be both." After the twins were asleep, David went to his home office and opened his laptop. He'd been working on something for months. A letter to his children. Something they could read when they were older. "Dear Lucas and Lily," it began. "By the time you read this, you'll be old enough to understand complicated truths. You'll know that your mother died bringing you into the world. You'll know that I was having an affair when it happened. You'll know the whole ugly story because I'm not going to hide it from you. People are complex. We're capable of both great love and terrible selfishness. I loved your mother. I also betrayed her. Both things are true. Well, your mother was extraordinary. She was kind, talented, funny, smart. She wanted you more than anything in the world. When she found out about my affair, she was planning to leave me. But she chose to stay until you were born because she wanted you to have a stable family. She died fighting for you. The doctors say HELP syndrome is unpredictable, that there was nothing anyone could have done differently. But I'll always wonder if the stress I caused contributed, if my lies and my betrayal somehow made her more vulnerable. I live with that guilt every day, but I also live with the incredible gift she gave me. You, 2 perfect, beautiful, amazing humans who make me want to be better. I won't lie to you about who I was. I was selfish and cowardly, and I hurt the person I should have protected most. But I'm trying every single day to be the father your mother believed I could be. The man who shows up, who puts you first, who loves you unconditionally, who tells you about your mother so you'll always know her, even though she's not here. I hope that's enough. I hope when you read this, you'll understand that people can make terrible mistakes and still love you fiercely. That your father is deeply flawed but also deeply committed to you. Your mother loved you more than life itself, literally. And I love you just as much. Everything I do for you. Love always, Dad. David saved the letter and closed his laptop. Through the window, he could see the backyard where they'd had the twins' first birthday party, where they'd celebrated every milestone since. 5 years. It felt like a lifetime, and like yesterday all at once, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. For a split second, David's heart seized, thinking it was Amber. But when he opened it, he saw it was from Dr. Rebecca Foster. Mr. Mitchell, I hope this message finds you well. I think of you and the twins often. I wanted you to know that the Sarah Mitchell Foundation funded a research study that just published results in JAMA. We're seeing a 15% reduction in HELLP syndrome mortality thanks to the early screening protocols the foundation developed. Your wife's death is saving lives. I thought you should know. Dr. Rebecca Foster. David read the message 3 times. Then he walked upstairs to the twins' room and stood in the doorway, watching them sleep. Did you hear that, Sarah? He whispered. You're still saving lives, still making a difference. I wish you were here to see it. I wish you could see them. Lucas rolled over, kicking off his blanket. David went in and covered him back up. Lily had somehow ended up completely perpendicular in her bed, her feet on her pillow. David gently shifted her back into position. I'm trying, he whispered to the room, to Sarah, to himself. I mess up sometimes. I still don't know what I'm doing half the time. But I'm trying so hard to be the father you knew I could be. He sat in the rocking chair between their beds, the same chair where he'd made his first promise 5 years ago. The chair where Sarah had probably imagined sitting, rocking her babies to sleep, singing lullabies. Lucas and Lily are amazing. Lucas is shy but brilliant. He reads at a 2nd grade level already. He loves math and science and wants to be an astronaut. Lily is fearless. She's always climbing things she shouldn't and making friends with everyone. She wants to be a veterinarian. They ask about you every day. They watch your videos. They look at pictures. I wish them to your grave every month, and we bring white roses, always white roses. They know you, even though you're gone, even though they never got to meet you. They know you, because I tell them. Every single day, I tell them about the extraordinary woman who loved them enough to die for them. I don't know if that makes up for what I did. I don't know if anything can. But it's all I have to give. My time, my love, my constant effort to be worthy of the sacrifice you made. David sat there until the first light of dawn began to filter through the curtains. Then he stood, kissed each sleeping child on the forehead, and went downstairs to make breakfast. Another day, another chance to prove Sarah's faith in him wasn't misplaced. Another chance to be the father his children needed. The father he should have been all along. 10 years after Sarah Mitchell's death, David stood in a hospital conference room and listened to Dr. Rebecca Foster present the findings of the latest research funded by the Sarah Mitchell Foundation. Thanks to early screening protocols and improved treatment methods developed through foundation grants, maternal mortality from HELLP syndrome has decreased by 37% nationally over the past decade. That's approximately 2,000 women who are alive today because of this research. 2,000 women, 2,000 families that didn't have to experience what David and his children had experienced. After the presentation, Dr. Rebecca Foster approached him. Your wife would be proud. I hope so. How are the twins? They're 15 now. Lucas is obsessed with robotics. Lily is on the debate team and wants to be a lawyer. David smiled. They're incredible. Sarah would love them. She does love them. I believe that. David thought about the videos he still watched sometimes late at night when he couldn't sleep. Sarah's voice frozen at 38 weeks pregnant, full of hope and fear and overwhelming love. I believe that too. Walking to his car, David's phone rang. Lily. Dad, Lucas is hogging the TV and I need to watch my debate recording from yesterday's tournament. Let him finish his show. You can wait 10 minutes. But Dad, 10 minutes, Lily. Use that excellent debate training to negotiate with your brother. She hung up, clearly annoyed. David smiled, 15 years old, arguing over the TV, dealing with homework and first crushes and friendship drama. Normal teenage problems. That's what Sarah had given them. Normal lives, despite the tragedy that began them. David drove home to his argumentative teenagers in his normal suburban life in his ordinary Tuesday evening. It was everything Sarah had wanted for them. And David